Maplewood was the kind of town where nothing ever happened. Nestled between rolling hills and endless fields, it was the sort of place where everyone knew each other's names, routines, and secrets, or at least they thought they did. That illusion of safety was shattered on a cool autumn evening when 17-year-old Lily Carter disappeared. She was known for her bright smile and her habit of biking home after her evening shifts at the local diner. That night, she never made it back. Her bicycle was found the next morning, propped neatly against an old fence at the edge of the woods as if she had stopped there willingly. But beyond that, there was nothing. No footprints, no struggle, no trace. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The town reacted with confusion first, then fear. Volunteers searched the forests, the riverbanks, and every back road leading out of town. The police set up roadblocks and questioned everyone who might have seen her that night. But every lead turned cold within hours. The townspeople gathered in the diner where Lily once worked, speaking in hushed voices, trying to make sense of the impossible. Some believed she had run away, maybe to the city for a new start. Others whispered darker things about someone watching, waiting, and taking. The uncertainty weighed heavily on everyone, turning friendly neighbors into silent strangers. As the days turned into weeks, Maplewood began to lose its sense of calm. Parents no longer let their children walk home alone. The once lively streets became quiet by nightfall, doors locked earlier than ever before. Posters of Lily's face faded in the rain, reminders of a story no one wanted to believe was real. The local sheriff, burdened by the growing tension, promised answers, but none came. Rumors began to twist into something far more sinister. Stories of strange lights in the woods, cries echoing after dark, and shadows that moved when no one was there. The disappearance of Lily Carter became more than a mystery. It was the wound that split Maplewood in two. Trust vanished and fear took its place. The town that once seemed safe now felt haunted. Somewhere, hidden in the stillness of the fields and the whisper of the trees, lay the truth about what really happened that night, but no one in Maplewood was ready to face it. Winter came early that year, wrapping Maplewood in a heavy silence. Snow covered the empty streets, softening the town's unease but never erasing it. People still talked about Lily, though now in quieter tones, as if saying her name too loudly might summon something dark. Detective Ryan Hale arrived just before the first snowfall, transferred from a nearby city. He was young but determined, the kind of man who believed every mystery had an answer, if you were brave enough to look. When he reopened Lily's case, many thought it was a waste of time. The trail had long gone cold and most of the town wanted to forget. But Ryan had seen too many cases where the truth was buried beneath complacency, and Maplewood felt like a place hiding more than sorrow. He started by reviewing old reports, photos, and statements. Something didn't sit right. The details of Lily's disappearance mirrored another case he found buried deep in the records, one from 25 years earlier. A girl named Emma Wade had vanished under nearly identical circumstances. She too had last been seen near the woods by the Miller farm, a place that had burned down years ago and was now nothing more than a collapsed barn and overgrown land. When Ryan mentioned it to the sheriff, he got a strange reaction, a hesitation as if the topic itself carried danger. Locals said the Miller family had left town after the fire, but Ryan discovered that George Miller, the grandson, still lived quietly on the outskirts, digging deeper. Ryan uncovered 3 more unsolved cases from the past decades, each involving young women who had gone missing within a few miles of the same area. The pattern was undeniable, yet no one had ever connected the dots. It was as though the town had collectively decided to ignore the past. Ryan began to suspect that Maplewood's peaceful image was nothing more than a mask. He spent hours walking the woods near the Miller farm, searching for anything the earlier investigators might have missed. Sometimes he thought he could hear faint sounds in the distance, like footsteps crunching the frozen ground, following him just out of sight. The deeper he went, the clearer it became that Lily's disappearance wasn't an isolated tragedy. It was part of something much older, something the town had tried to bury beneath time and silence. And the truth, he realized, was still out there waiting to be found. The first signs of spring brought more than just melting snow to Maplewood. It brought the discovery that would shatter what little peace remained. On a quiet Sunday morning, a group of hikers wandering through the woods near the old Miller farm stumbled upon something strange buried in the dirt. At first they thought it was the remains of an animal, but as one of them brushed away the soil, a human skull emerged from the earth. Panic spread quickly, and within hours the area was surrounded by police tape and flashing lights. The once forgotten farmland became the center of a nightmare that no one in Maplewood could ignore anymore. Forensic teams worked tirelessly, unearthing what turned out to be a shallow grave containing multiple sets of human remains. It was a grim sight, bones tangled together, fragments of old clothing still clinging to them. The discovery sent shockwaves through the town. Rumors spread faster than the police could control them. Everyone wanted to know who the victims were, but no one was prepared for the truth. When DNA tests came back, one of the bodies was confirmed to be Lily Carter. The others dated back decades, belonging to girls who had disappeared long before most of the current residents had even been born. Detective Ryan Hale stood over the excavation site, staring at the unearthed evidence. His theory about the town's hidden past had been right, but the realization brought no satisfaction, only dread. The Miller farm had become the graveyard of Maplewood's forgotten victims. The case that had started as a single missing person now pointed to a serial killer who had operated in plain sight for generations. The question wasn't just who had done it, but how they had managed to stay hidden for so long. Fear swept through Maplewood like a storm. People began looking at each other differently. Neighbors who once exchanged friendly smiles now avoided eye contact. Every old face seemed suspicious, every quiet man a potential killer. The town's sense of unity crumbled. Even the sheriff, once confident and respected, looked haunted when he spoke to reporters. He promised justice, but no one truly believed him. The darkness that had taken root in Maplewood was older and deeper than anyone imagined. The discovery had opened the ground not just literally, but metaphorically, revealing that beneath the town's calm surface lay years of buried sin and silence. Detective Ryan Hale knew the discovery of the graves was only the beginning. The more he studied the evidence, the clearer it became that the murders had been carried out with precision and planning. Someone had taken great care to hide the bodies, to erase every trace of their existence. He returned to the Miller farm countless times, examining old structures, searching for clues the earlier teams might have missed. The land seemed to whisper secrets with every gust of wind. One night, while reviewing property records, he found something that made his heart stop. The Miller family's land had changed ownership multiple times after the fire. But one name kept reappearing in the paperwork: George Miller. He was the grandson of the original owner, the same man who still lived on the outskirts of town. The town had almost forgotten about him, a quiet man who kept to himself and rarely came into town. Ryan decided to pay him a visit. George's small house sat on the edge of the forest, surrounded by rusted farming equipment and decaying sheds. The man himself was polite, reserved, and surprisingly calm when Ryan asked him questions. He claimed he had no knowledge of the graves, saying he had inherited the land but rarely went near it. There was something unsettling in his stillness, something too controlled. After the visit, Ryan ordered a warrant to search the property. What the investigators found would change everything. Hidden beneath the floorboards of George's basement was a narrow door leading into an underground cellar. The air was damp and cold, filled with the smell of decay and dust. Along the walls hung old photographs, faded images of the missing girls, each one carefully labeled with names and dates. Boxes filled with personal belongings were stacked in the corners, lockets, bracelets, and torn pieces of clothing. It was a gallery of memories belonging to the dead. The team realized they were standing inside a room built by someone who had preserved his crimes like trophies, but George Miller was gone. His truck was missing, and his house looked as though he had left in a hurry. A search party swept the surrounding woods, uncovering something even more disturbing: a hidden tunnel leading away from the property. Inside the tunnel were dozens of trinkets and tools, evidence from decades of murders. It was clear now that Maplewood's nightmare had not ended. The monster had simply vanished back into the shadows, leaving behind only proof of how long he had been among them. For 2 long weeks, the search for George Miller consumed Maplewood. Officers combed through miles of forest, drained sections of the nearby river, and set up roadblocks along every exit from town. Fear turned to paranoia as stories spread like wildfire. Some said George had escaped to another state. Others whispered that he was hiding in the very woods where the bodies had been found, watching them all. Every noise after dark felt louder. every shadow more threatening. Detective Ryan Hale barely slept. He pored over George's past, desperate to understand what could drive a man to such darkness. Then, after a violent storm swept through the area, nature itself revealed the final piece of the puzzle. When the floodwaters receded, a local fisherman discovered a body tangled in the roots near the edge of the forest. It was George Miller. Beside him was a water-damaged notebook sealed in plastic, its pages still legible. What it contained was a confession that no one in Maplewood could have imagined. George hadn't started the killings, he had continued them. According to the pages, his grandfather, Henry Miller, had been the true origin of Maplewood's horror. In the 1970s, Henry had lured young girls from town to his farm, claiming to offer them work or shelter. When he died in the fire that destroyed the barn, George had discovered everything hidden beneath the floorboards: photographs, jewelry, and a diary that revealed every gruesome detail. Rather than expose his grandfather, George had felt an unexplainable connection to him, a pull he described as a duty to finish what was begun. He continued the killings in secret, using the same methods, choosing victims who resembled those from the past. Over the years, he became invisible to the town, blending into their trust, a man too ordinary to be feared. In his final entry, George wrote that he could no longer bear the weight of what he had done, that the faces of the victims haunted him every night. He ended the note with a single line: "The farm will always remember." The truth left Maplewood stunned. The town had spent generations living above graves, worshipping false peace while evil had slept beneath their soil. The case was closed, but the damage was permanent. The people of Maplewood would never look at their town the same way again, forever haunted by the secret it had kept buried for so long.